Welcome to Scoop World Order. Is Bill O'Brien gone before he even gets here? We're going to get into all that. We're going to get into expansion news. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to go for about an hour tonight, so get those super chats fired up as always. Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for making this the number one Ohio State podcast. We're crushing it right now. It's all thanks to you guys. Again, you guys make this whole show. We appreciate you guys so much. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, click that little alert bell. You'll get an alert every time we go live. Again, what an incredible run we've been on. It's all thanks to you guys. So let's make this a fantastic show tonight. Again, get the super chats fired up if you guys have questions. And we're going to get right into it because Nevada, the Bill O'Brien stuff is very interesting to me because, he's a guy that's very transient. I mean, he's, that's life in coaching. Like he's a name. He did great work at Penn State when they were under an avalanche of sanctions with Sandusky stuff. I thought he was really good with the Texans. But he's the guy that his name always comes up when there's job openings. Obviously, the Boston College thing is going on. Your thoughts on it? Again, Boston College is such a terrible job. But where do you stand, or what are you hearing on Bill O'Brien right now?
Well, look, I've been making calls, and I'm aware of the reports that are out on the internet right now about the job. And let me just caution you too about I won't go into names, but when people say Ohio State is concerned or there could be a thing, or basically they don't know, because the people that they're talking to in Ohio State aren't really at the level that would know. So it's just kind of a hedge. It's kind of, yeah, they're concerned because if something could happen, then they were concerned. And if it doesn't happen, then they weren't concerned. And so I really wouldn't read too much into that. What I've been doing is I've been really working the agents and trying to talk to them about it. And do I think that there is some level of interest or some level of discussion? I do believe that, but I still haven't heard from anybody that believes he's going to take that job. And, I've been calling people, I've been asking the question. So until I hear differently, my position is going to be that I don't see him taking that job. I understand about family, and I understand wanting to be close to a pediatric neuropathy center or whatever. But look, he's been all over. He's been in Houston. He's been in Alabama. He's been all, it's not like he's only coached in Boston his entire life. And you're talking about a guy who's been an NFL head coach. I believe he's the GM as well. So he's got generational wealth in the bank, can pick and choose the jobs that he wants. And unless Boston College was like the dream job, like that's where I want to go and I wanted to die, be the head coach at Boston College, I just can't see it happening. Am I willing to like burn the boats and just say, I guarantee you won't take it? No, I would never say never on anything like that because I don't know. But it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to the people that I'm talking to. And so that's why I don't see it happening. But I do believe that there are conversations taking place, but I just can't believe that after a couple of weeks they would turn right around and do it. I mean, when he came here, there were NFL jobs available. When he came here, there were other college jobs available. So I would just have to really question what has changed. The only thing would be is, oh, it's Boston College. The Boston College job is so attractive, given their place in the college football landscape, given their place in the ACC, and that it's just such could never have dreamed that job would become available, and now it is, and that's why I had to go get it. And when I say those words, it just doesn't make sense to me. So that's where I'm at with it. I'll continue to monitor things, and I reserve the right to change my mind with more information. But as I'm sitting right now, I just don't see it happening. But I'll continue to monitor the situation.
Yeah, I think that with Ryan hiring him, this is a short-term thing. This is going to be a couple of years, and he's going to be off to be a head coach somewhere in all likelihood. But again, you had to, if you're going to hire a guy like Bill O'Brien, like, that he's going to be in demand. But man, it's like when you look at the jobs he's taken, he's coaching Tom Brady, he's coaching Alabama. The Penn State thing was tough just because, the sanctions. But that was a chance to coach at Penn State, and you can win at Penn State. And if he stuck around there, he'd probably be doing better than James Franklin is. But his history does not, he doesn't take bad jobs. Like Boston College is a terrible job. Like that is, it's like Notre Dame, except it's just way it's Notre Dame without the national prestige. And like I don't know why you'd want to go, with your hands tied behind your back against Clemson and Florida State, and you're just such a small fiddle in the Boston sports community because they've got the Bruins, they've got the Red Sox, they've got the Patriots. Like you're just like kind of a nothing burger out there. So that's a hard place to win. And again, being a college football head coach now, it's never been harder because like you're basically a fundraiser. You're calling people, trying to get NIL deals, trying to get money for collectives, because you got to keep your roster intact. And I mean, that's something that I just don't think he wants to do. Now, again, he might take the job tonight. I might be crazy. But like, you look at where he's been, like Alabama, like when he took over the Texans for Gary, he took when Gary Kubiak got fired. I mean, he had like DeAndre Hopkins and Arian Fox. I mean, he had a loaded offense, so that, in general, like if you're going to job hop, like if he was to leave, I just couldn't imagine him leaving after, a few weeks, whatever it's been, for a terrible job. It's one thing if like an NFL job comes open and they want him, they give him a big check, but dude, Boston College, that's a terrible job. So that's my opinion on it. Again, he could take off, but I don't know, man. It's like, why would you not coach at Ohio State with this loaded team, this loaded offense, the most as loaded of a team as we've had, and then go after like a real job, like a big time job? Because that's what I would do. I mean, this is not going to be Bill O'Brien's last job. We know he's going to be here for a year or two, probably two, hopefully, and then he's going to be jetting off to somewhere because he is like Brian Kelly. Like there's certain guys, their names always come up when there's openings in the league, in college, and he's one of those guys. But I don't know. I think that it just doesn't make any sense to go to BC because again, that job sinks. Where you could have an incredible season, potentially win a national championship at Ohio State, and then go get a good job. Because like I want a job. I want to go somewhere where it's going to be unfair. Like I want to go somewhere where we've got to get an NIL collective. We've got in-state talent. Like Boston College, literally. They don't other than a good education. I don't know what you can get out of there. But Nevada, do you think that this is a precedent? I mean, with Ryan, he's only had Jeff Hafley leave after 1 year. Because I think mostly they want a 2-year commitment if they're going to hire you at Ohio State or a place like that. But what are your thoughts on Bill O'Brien with the rumors? Because again, he could have shut it down already, but. I don't know how much of it is the agents, because again, the agents have to drum up interest, and I'm sure he's got his contract. I don't know if it's signed or finished yet. That hasn't been made official yet. What's he making here? He's probably making 2.5 million, I'd imagine. But what are your thoughts on Bill O'Brien? Because again, I'm excited about it, but I'm also very, I know that he's only going to be here for a year or two. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it just. Like I said, I've got a really good source that's confirmed for me that I think that there's been legitimacy to the conversations. But man, what an incredible slap to the face. You can't fall back on a guy's got to do what's important for his family or whatever it was. Because if that was really the priority, Bill O'Brien has got $60 million in the bank. Then just stop coaching and be with your family and stay there in Boston or wherever near the best children's hospital in the world, and just stay there and do your thing. I mean, if you take on a college football head coaching job, as you said, with NIL it's far different than being a coordinator. I mean, you talk about, I know what your workload was like when you were a coach there at Ohio State, but the head coach now with NIL, I mean, I'm not sure how much you're going to be around your family if you're doing that, because it's like you had every other job responsibility before, and now you've thrown on it full-time fundraiser at an unprecedented level on top of all that. So good luck with that. So I think because of that, I just think I see guys like Bill O'Brien as being kind of dinosaurs for college. I think college football is going to be dominated by younger coaches, guys that have more energy that can do that. Because I think, I don't think that the older established guys are going to do it. I mean, when you talk to the Dan Mullins, when you talk to the Urban Meyers, and because they come up in names for all these college opportunities as well, they won't even pick up the phone. It doesn't matter how much money is on the other line, Texas A&M, Michigan State, whomever. They don't even take the calls because they have no interest in getting back into college coaching. And I think a lot of these established guys with tens of millions of dollars in the bank are going to come to a similar decision at some point down the road. So we'll continue to monitor, but this is one for the books. I mean, if it happened, it would just be just a remarkable betrayal, I think. And I think they'd have to spin this about the family, but I think this would definitely make Bill O'Brien a super villain for sure. That's why I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and like, it's not great. I mean, it's terrible for your coaching reputation. Like, if you take a job and you hop, immediately. And again, it happens. Like, this time of year, there's guys that they go to a school and then someone else gets another job and they go there. I mean, Jim Boldman, who was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, was at Boston College as a line coach, and he went to Boston College. Then he was at Purdue when Darrell Hazel got the job, and he was there for like a month, and then Mark D'Antonio hired him at Michigan State. So I mean, it happens. It's not a fun conversation to have, but if you're Jim Boldman and you look at like Purdue, who stunk back then, or you go to Michigan State where Dino kind of had it rolling and they were a playoff team, like you got to do what's best for you. And whatever the thing about coaching is, you want to go where you have the best chance for success to keep not just your job but the head coach's job. Because there's guys now that take jobs, man, and coach down the hot seat. Like Jeff Hafley, as much as everybody loves him, like he was probably gonna get fired next year if he had another year like he did this year. So these guys are dipping out to the NFL. I've never seen anything like what's going on right now, where these guys are leaving head coaching jobs to go to the league and be a coordinator. Like, I've never seen that before. And I think it's 100% because of NIL and the transfer portal. I mean, I'm not, obviously that's duh, of course, but, Ryan Day spends a lot of time fundraising. I mean, it's like something that didn't exist, but Ryan, and he's been killing it, by the way. I mean, he has been killing it fundraising, but he knows that if you want to dominate college football in the future, you have to have a war chest, and that war chest gets drained constantly. There's always, and you gotta have money ready to go for guys that hit the portal that can help us. Again, if this tackle jumps in from Boston College, I mean, that's Ozzie is going to be getting a nice offer from Ohio State, and that's something that didn't exist. And thankfully, Ohio State has a lot of really wealthy people around it that love Ohio State. They want Ohio State to be prominent, but not every school's like that. It's like when you're, if you go to again, if you're Bill O'Brien, you go to Boston College, you're like what, like the 10th biggest team in Boston, and people, it's hard to go shake the money tree when people can go watch the Bruins or the Patriots or the Red Sox or whatever. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff to do in Boston. So to go and be like 15th fiddle in that city just seems like it'd be insane. But hey, I've seen crazy stuff happen, but I just think that it would be terrible. And again, if you just look at his history, he hasn't like taken a really bad. Now, Penn State was rough because of everything that happened, but Penn State is still Penn State. Penn State can win a national championship. Like they're a team that legitimately has enough talent where they can be really good. But Boston College sucks. And I'm telling you, like a guy like him at his age, been around the block, like I don't want to go somewhere where we're going to be 45-point dogs at home versus Clemson and Florida State and the good ACC teams. So it'll be interesting. Nevada, there's been a lot going on with expansion. There's like this little alliance thingamajig now with the SEC and the Big Ten. Is the NFL light coming? Real quick, before we get into that, I want to get D Sunny because D Sunny's got a super. Oh, that is way too big. Sorry, guys. Let me get this little scaled back. That is huge. But if you guys don't have to worry your readers when you're watching the show and it's that big. D Sunny, thank you for the 5, my friend. If you or the Bears trading the number 1 pick, would you rather have Marv and a future 1 or a later pick with 2 firsts? That is a great question. I think I would rather have Marv, especially if you're keeping Justin Fields, because he needs a weapon. And Justin Fields has got some good. I mean, Cole Kmet is a really good tight end. He's got some good guys around him. Nevada, what are your thoughts? Do you think the Bears are going to move on Justin Fields? Do you think they're going to trade down? This is going to be a fascinating draft this year because Caleb Williams is at the top of it, and a lot of people think he's special.
I mean, I think the Bears already have their guy. I think the Bears are going to trade down and do the smart thing for once, and trade down, take Marv, take the future draft capital on top of that, and you might have ended up with the best player in the draft already and another surefire weapon to go with your already formidable offense and a really good defense. So that's what I would do. I think that's the surest path. I mean, we've seen with all these quarterbacks, nothing's a sure thing with any of these quarterbacks, that's for sure. And Caleb Williams could turn out to be great. He could turn out to be okay or whatever. But the Bears, when they've tried to fine tune this, the thing about what the Bears did when they traded up to take Trubisky and they draft, they traded what, 2 first-round picks or whatever it
Oh
was.
God.
And, you know, if they just stayed where they were, they would have probably taken Patrick Mahomes. Instead, they traded up and took Mitch Trubisky. So sometimes I think you can outsmart yourself in these situations. And look, the smartest team in all of the NFL is the team that has traded down more than anybody in the NFL, probably more than all the other teams in the NFL combined, and that's the Patriots. So I think you've just got to emulate what the teams do that that are good year in and year out in a league that's defined by parity. They've defied it all, so I think that's the model. I would take Harrison, trade down, take the draft capital, and go from there.
Yeah, I think you're crazy if you but I get why you would take Caleb Williams and trade Justin Fields if you're the Bears, because again, the most important thing is if you can be good and have a lot of good players and you have your quarterback on that rookie deal where he's making $15 million a year instead of $70 million a year or $60 million a year, then that's when you have some you can make some hay while the sun's shining. And resetting that, so you're starting with Caleb Williams. You have a 5-year stretch where he's under contract and he doesn't cost $60 million a year, because like Pat Mahomes he's $50 million a year right now on the salary cap. So when you do that, bye Tyreek Hill, bye like a couple of really good players. When he only costs $15 million, I mean that's $35 million. So you can go get 2 or 3 really good players for that. So it's just so funny because Ryan Poles, who's the GM of the Bears, and I were teammates in 2008 in training camp. It's hilarious. And Ryan actually went to Boston College. He was the guy that Ohio State recruited heavily. We're the same age. But yeah, I just think that, like the Caleb Williams thing, it's going to be the most fascinating thing in the draft. But I think Justin Fields has proven he can play in the NFL and he can play at a high level. And I think people, like I don't think Caleb Williams is a sure thing by any stretch, and I think that it'll kind of upset the apple cart if you go and toss Justin, but you're gonna have to pay Justin. I mean, he's gonna have to make 35-40 million a year, and that's the hard part about when you have a quarterback like that, because then you're gonna have to let 2 good players walk out the door. That's kind of the it's just like in the NHL when guys are on entry level contracts versus big contracts, and you have to get rid of some guys because they've got a hard salary cap. Beach Buck, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you so much. If you have a question, toss it in there. Yeah, Nevada, we're talking about this alliance between the Big Ten and the SEC. Really interesting because, again, we've been predicting that it's going to be the NFL. It's going to be the AFC versus the NFC. It's going to be the Big Ten versus the SEC. And I just think from a financial sense, it just all would work so much better if you kind of made like a super league of Big Ten and SEC, and then you have like kind of like a minors, which would be like the MAC and the WAC and all these conferences that frankly can't afford to play with the big boys. Then you have 1AA. I think that's what the future is going to be. But what are your thoughts on that? Got some more super chats coming in too.
Well, a couple of things. One, I don't think people realize how close Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey have become. Those guys are really becoming close friends. They spend a lot of time in communication with each other. And this alliance isn't like that stupid Pac-10, Big Ten scheduling alliance or whatever the heck. Whatever, when Warren announced that, remember that thing that was like, well, it's not really alliance, it's just a deal to be a deal. It was nothing. This is one because they recognize that their issues in the Big Ten football and SEC football are different than everybody else's. And so for them, they're looking at this thing very differently. The issues that are important to them are not important to other schools. And as you said, it's going towards an NFL model where you're going to have 24 teams in the Big Ten, 24 teams in the SEC. If you've been a person listening to the show, we've talked about this many, many times. And that's why schools like Notre Dame, North Carolina, Miami, Florida State, they're all going to have to pick a side because you're either going to be inside or you're going to be outside. And they realize it. They see the writing on the wall. That's why the grant of rights with ACC is being challenged. That's why Notre Dame is, really, kind of putting out words out there that they're reconsidering their independent position, because you can be independent, all right, but then you're going to be outside the college football playoff, because the college football playoff is going to be Big Ten versus SEC, and I don't think there's going to be anybody else standing when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and it's going to be awesome. Like, I love that because I want to see good games every week. Nothing against Western Kentucky and some of the teams that had to come to the shoe this year, but nobody gets excited for those games. They're just scrimmages. Like, I want to see real teams come to the shoe, and I think that's what everybody wants. And I think you do that, the TV money's got to. I mean, TV money's already crazy, but if you're having Ohio State play Georgia and those big matchups are just so fun to watch, and everyone gets excited for them. W Buckeye, appreciate you, my man. Thank you for the 10. I know we usually talk football, but I have a b-ball question. I know he has some baggage, but what about? Oh, God. Bob Huggins coming to fix program? I mean, I don't think so. I mean, everyone loved him when he was at Cincinnati, and they had Kenyon Martin, and they were awesome. But I just think, that would be a disaster. It'd be fun. It'd be interesting. I'm sure that B-Dubs would like it because they'd be selling a lot of beer shoes here. But what are your thoughts about it? Bob Huggins, I think that this hire is going to be critical, man, because you've got to get some energy in that building in the shot, because the shot it's the zombie apocalypse right now. It's so empty. Your thought on Bob Huggins, Nevada?
I just don't see that there's any chance that could ever happen. I mean, it's nice to talk about. It's a good question. I just don't see it. There's no way. I mean, there's baggage, and then there's Bob Huggins baggage, and it's kind of like remember the beginning of Titanic when they got out of the car and they had like the 77 steamer truck trunks and stuff like that, and Billy Zane's like tipping everybody $100 bills. That's the kind of baggage that Bob Huggins brings to this. So love it. It would not be good.
That's some imagery, but it's truth. I mean, again, you can't at a program like Ohio State, you can't hire a guy like Bob Huggins. Again, great coach, but he's just wild. I mean, it'd be like someone saying, "Let's hire Rick Pitino" or something. I mean, yeah, that'd be fun, but I mean, there's a lot of slime around that now, and I mean, I don't know, but it's gonna be fascinating, man, because it's gonna be a big one. Deb Sobel, thank you for the 5. Thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member as well. Appreciate you. If the Bears take Marvin, I'll be the happiest person in Chi-Town. OBrien is here to make his mark and move on. Agree. Yeah, I mean, Marvin makes a ton of sense. I mean, obviously he never laughed with Justin, but he's a big, dominant player, and I like big receivers in cold weather. Chicago. I mean, you're playing a lot of games in nasty weather. You have those big, strong, like Plaxico Burress type guys. That's like the best. So, and Marvin, I think would be, they've already got DJ Moore. DJ Moore is awesome. He's a Pro Bowler. Cole Kmet is really good. And then you throw Marvin in there, and that's getting scary. The line, they still got to find a left tackle. But, I mean, I think that Ryan Poles fleeced the Carolina Panthers in that Bryce Young trade. That's one of the greatest trades of all time because DJ Moore is awesome. He's young. I mean, he's done some really good jobs. He got Montez Sweat, the D end. So he got some really good deals there. What are your thoughts about it? I mean, Marvin, obviously to Chicago would make a ton of sense. Would that be, you think, the perfect landing place for Marvin Harrison? He'll be right back. So yeah, I think it'll be really good. Yeah, O'Brien, like I said, O'Brien's going to be probably 2 years tops. Again, I think when you take this job, you need to get a 2-year deal. And I think that's the fairest way to do it. Trying to see what else is going on. What are you guys up to tonight? Put it in the chat. I want to see what you guys were. What are you guys up to? I'm looking at some mock drafts. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where some of these guys go. It's also interesting that the Senior Bowl is today. Mike Hall, I believe he played in it, but kids are starting to sit out of that game too. I played in the Senior Bowl. I got hurt in practice the Wednesday of Senior Bowl week, and I couldn't work out at the combine, and I regretted it ever since. It sucked. Nevada is talking Senior Bowl because I think it's gonna be interesting to see how much longer like a Senior Bowl goes on. Mike Hall played in it, but guys are starting to set out of that because they already set all the bowl games. Like the Senior Bowl, the practices are by far the most important part. A lot of the scouts don't even go to the game. They usually leave on Friday after practice. But Your thoughts on I was asking about Marvin Harrison and the Bears, and what would be his perfect landing spot?
Well, I mean, that'd be a pretty close to a perfect landing spot for him. I just think the Bears are a really good team, and this is coming from a Packer fan. I think they're close. I think they're really
No.
close, and I think the only one that can screw it up is the Bears. And if history's any indication, they'll screw it up. But I just think they might get it right this time and take the sure thing, avoid the opportunity. I mean, Fields is good. And Fields is he's gonna be expensive, but I mean, what's the market really for Fields? Do you think any team's gonna be offering? They're not. Nobody's gonna want to pay Fields $40 or $50 million to play there. You know what I'm saying? So you can
Yeah.
get him at a discount. He's not Mahomes type of money. He's not Rodgers kind of money. You get him at starting quarterback kind of money, and go out and build your team around your guy. He's proven that he can move the team. DJ Moore had an unbelievable year. I can't even imagine the kind of numbers that Moore would put up if he had Harrison on the other side. And build around that great defense, do your thing, and rock and roll.
Yeah, I think it would be amazing for him to get, because I mean, then you're talking, you got Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, and Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, that's disgusting. Like, that's really good. Because Cole Kmet he's 6'6", 265, and man, he's a beast. Notre Dame, they put out a lot of tight ends. They're like Iowa. Again, I still can't understand how Iowa has been so incredible at putting tight ends out, and their offense is so terrible. But if you look at Hawkinson, Laporta, Kittle, I mean, Luke Lachey, I mean, if I'm a tight end, that's the place I'm going to. Nevada, as we're getting into workouts, we'll get some workout information probably this week. The guys are in the middle of the first portion of the winter, which is they just call it phase one. They'll move into phase two. Let me see when this dead period starts, because the second signing day is going to be coming up in a few weeks. When is National Signing Day? 2024. Yeah, because like usually right before that is when they hit the February 7th. So there you go. So they'll be on a dead period. They might be on a dead period starting this week. So that means the coaches are going to be in the building. They're going to start getting together, and it is going to be a wild time. Let me see. Oh, I got a couple more super chats. Appreciate you guys. Okay. Beach Buck, appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the 20. If goal is to get Heartline to call the plays, and Bob is okay, does he have the chops to call plays? I can't see Brian Heartline calling a play. Not yet. I mean, it's hard to do it. It's hard to do it. Again, I think that with Brian, it's terrifying to think about him trying to learn on the job. Like, I think, especially at a place like Ohio State, like, you got to go somewhere small, and you got to go somewhere and kind of make your mistakes where you're not going to get hammered. Because like Ryan Day, Ryan has gotten to where he is in life because he's a really good play caller. So, and he has his moments where he's not really on, but he's had a lot of times where he's been really good. So I can't see him wanting to have Brian Hartline kind of learn on the job. Because I think that's just impossibly hard. It was like when Kerry Combs took the DC job in 2020, or whatever, it was 20. It was halfway left in 19. Like, I was like, that's going to be a disaster. He's never called a defense before, and now you're going to have him like call a defense, and it's hectic, and it's a living, breathing chess match during the game. And man, you have to be able to make adjustments, man. I mean, when we're in that press box, man, and we're sitting there as coaches, like, we're making adjustments like during the drive, like on the fly, So, and you got to have good people around you. That's the most important thing. Like when I was a G and I'd sit with Jim Bowman or Tom Herman, I would literally write notes and I would show them to them. Hey, we're getting this safety blitz. On third down, we're getting 100% blitz, right? Like, nothing crazy, but if there's something that I picked up, I'd be like, just so you know, or hey, we're not doing too hot versus this D tackle. You might not want to run at him anymore. Obviously, Tom, he's the guy calling everything, but if you give him something helpful, it's good. Nevada, your thoughts on Brian Hartline calling plays? Because again, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I think he's going to have to go somewhere else to do it as long as Ryan's here. But Bill O'Brien's going to do a lot of developing of Brian Hartline. I think it's going to be really good for Brian.
Well, that's part of the job. I mean, that's part of what was pitched to Bill O'Brien, is that part of his job responsibilities was to get Hartline up to speed, kind of get him integrated in as a person who could be in a position to play, call plays at some point. So no, I think it's definitely something they want to do. It's something they want to get to that point. But Brian's not close to being the guy. He's not close to
Yeah.
being ready to do that. But in a couple of years, would he be more ready? Yeah, certainly more so than today. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because you can always get better at it, and you can let them maybe call a scrimmage or something just to get used to it. But doing it in real time is kind of terrifying. Again, I like my play caller to be with the quarterbacks. Brian's obviously a wide receiver coach. I just there's not many offensive coordinators that are wide receiver coaches either. I think that relationship with the offensive coordinator, the play caller, and the quarterback is just so critical. That's how I liked what Urban did, where he structured Tom Herman's quarterbacks coach, and he's also the OC. Mike Yursich was like that. Ryan Day was like that. I think that's the best mix. Again, I don't know how he did it with Trust all these years with Jim Bowman as the O line coach and the coordinator, and he was good. But it's like, dude, like coaching the offensive line is a different animal. It's the hardest position on the team to coach, and there's 5 guys out there that you have to coach every single play. So nobody else has 5 guys out there every single play. So it's a lot, and then to call plays on top of it is almost impossible. Ohio 7715. What's up, brother? Thanks for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thanks for texting back and forth. I appreciate you, my man. Thank you for the hundo. What's up, Kirk in Nevada? Hope all's well. Can you fill us in what you've heard about the culture of the team has been affected by bringing in transfers and paying them big money, positively or negatively? I hope positive. Increases natty chances. OH, Nevada.
I-O.
Love it. Appreciate you, brother. I think that the culture part, it's fascinating because it's just like it's a cold splash of water. Like as soon as some of these guys, because some of these guys, when you're a freshman at Ohio State, you get assigned a dorm room and stuff. But some of these guys aren't in dorms. Like they're in like luxury apartments, and and some of these freshmen show up and they're like, "Where's my luxury apartment? Oh, I'm not good enough for a luxury apartment." So some of these guys, it's a little bit of a, there's always going to be jealousy and pocket watching and stuff. But, like my thing is like, look, with NIL, you can go out and kick indoors and call people, and you can go make as much money as you want. You can get on Cameo. You can do whatever you want. You can some of these guys play video games. They play on Twitch. And before NIL, you couldn't be on Twitch monetizing and making money. There's a kicker, a punter whose name is Destroying, and he literally gave up his college football career, I think it's Central Florida, because he was making money on YouTube. And they said you lose your eligibility if you monetize based on your likeness. And so he was like the original NIL kid, and he literally quit playing college football because he was making so much money on YouTube. And all these kids have all the opportunity in the world to go and meet business people and talk to people. And I was like, I would have loved it because I would have been calling everybody. It would have been amazing. And I said, hey, is there anything I could do? You got any appearances you need me to do? Is anything? Because I think it's amazing. But, there is, pocket watching, and there's kids that, are dirt poor, and there's kids that are, the kids that it really sucks for are the kids that are in year 3 of the program, because they were pre-NIL being a thing. The kids the last 2 years have been getting paid when they showed up. But those kids in year 3, none of those guys are really getting paid. And, these companies, they like to do deals with freshmen because then you have them for at least 3 years. JJ Smith's a great one. You get him for 3 years and he's a superstar, and away you go. If you're an older guy, it's kind of a lot of things in life. When you get a little long in the tooth, man, you're not as attractive to companies. Now, if you're just a flat superstar like Marvin Harrison, then you can throw that out the window. But if you're just an average guy, it's really tough. Nevada, your thoughts on NIL positively? But I think NIL is incredibly positive for Ohio State, man. You want to talk about helping out kids from South Florida. They don't have a lot of money, and you worry about that travel and getting mom and dad to the game every week, and little sister, little brother. That's very expensive. So now, if you're a kid like JJ Smith, all of a sudden you get an NIL check, and you're like, this is great. My mom can fly up every week. She can get get an extra room in your apartment, whatever. So I love that, because I know it was a pain when I had to get my mom to games, just because it's expensive. It's really expensive. But your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, I'll kind of separate NIL and the transfer portal, but I think you know they both just it just makes college football different because now, I mean, can you really go out and talk about the brotherhood and about development and about come here and I mean just it's so different now, and I see it with my own. I have a kid that's plays sports and being recruited, and one of the schools that she's interested in going to, they're bringing in a bunch of 5th and 6th year players, and um, is that, do you want to be at that spot, or do you want to be at a spot where they develop? So I just always wonder. I take it from my own little limited experiences, and just wonder how that's going to change for Ohio State and how Ryan Day is going to thread the needle. And clearly, from a net positive, net negative thing for Ohio State, this has been a big win because we're winning at this game. We're winning at the NIL game. We're winning in the transfer portal. The team that we're putting on the field in 2024 will be one of the best teams that I've ever seen at Ohio State, and will be a favorite to.
I think Nevada accidentally muted himself. But yeah, I'm the biggest pro NIL guy on earth. I love it. I think it's the greatest thing ever. Ryan Day is getting really good. I mean, he is working hard to keep that roster, man. I'm telling you, like, with NIL, again, Nevada, I was saying, like, with NIL, again, there was a point where we didn't like talking about NIL because it's like a snooze fest, but I love seeing kids be able to help their parents, because a lot of these kids, they come from nothing. I mean, they come from literally destitute, poor, poverty, and it's brutal, and for Ohio State to be able to give some of these kids, especially like kids from South Florida Express, a little bit of money, it's huge for us. Because, I mean, our talent base isn't what it used to be in the state of Ohio for football. So you got to get some of these kids from Georgia and Florida and Texas and California. So all of a sudden, when you can make a little money, like CJ Stroud's a perfect example. He's from Inland Empire out in California. And, I mean, you guys, everyone knows the story of CJ. His dad's incarcerated. Mom, worked extremely hard to get everything as best she could for CJ and his siblings. But when he's balling as a quarterback and he can make like a big chunk of money, he can take care of her. He can help her. It's like she doesn't have to break her back anymore. And like again, that's my favorite part about NIL is seeing how these kids can help their families. Because again, it's not and again, and some of them like like a kid like Trey Henderson or some of these guys like in the past, and I've said this a million times, those guys all would want pro. And now with NIL, like these guys can, they can have a little pocket change and they can actually, take care of their family and actually enjoy college for another year, which I love that. Like I love the fact these guys are, they get to, stay for another year. Because I will tell you, the NFL is the ultimate competition because it's the greatest players in the world, but it sucks compared to college. Like college is so much more fun because everyone's your age. Like, I mean, everyone's within 4 or 5 years of each other. And when you get to the league, man, your teammates are 35 years old and you're 22, and like I mean, just wildly different lives. They've got kids and a wife. You're single. Like in college, everyone's just kind of like kicking it, having a good time, and plus like you're really playing for your people. Like I was really playing for Gonzo and AJ Hawk and Rob Sims and those guys. Like you want to go lay it on the line for those guys. Those are your boys. You get to the NFL, man. Everyone's a mercenary, which again, it's fine. I love the NFL. NFL football is great, but it ain't the same because it's strictly business at that point. And in college, I know that they talk about the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood is really good marketing. But in reality, like when you've got 120 guys on the roster, there's gonna be a lot of people that don't like each other. It's like any other organization or any other job or whatever. And like the Brotherhood is good marketing, but you really get it whittled down to the guys that are like your boys. And that's like really the true Brotherhood. It's not, not everybody gets to be, carte blanche, your homie, because this is how it works in life. Like if you're an organization of any type of size, there's going to be people that like each other, that don't like each other. That's kind of how it is. Ohio 7715, appreciate you again, brother. Thank you for the 5. Any update on Ozzy or any scum players entering the portal? OH, Nevada.
IO.
Love it. Not yet, but I think it's coming. Again, I think for a kid like Ozzy, I mean, his world just got put into a blender because I mean, he was thinking, oh, I got Jeff Halfley back and everything's all good, but man, like they don't even know who their coach is. They don't even know who they're interviewing, and those kids are just sitting, probably checking, footballscoop.com, seeing who's getting interviewed and who are the projects. There's like 15 candidates, and I just think that it's really tough. And again, because like for that kid, if you're an offensive lineman, like you want to know who's going to be my O-line coach. Like, am I going to hate that guy? And who's going to be the head coach? Am I going to hate that guy? Are they keeping Phil Matisse the strength coach? I mean, there's so many questions when something like this happens. But again, like Jeff Halfley, like kind of screwed his staff. I mean, and again, I don't know how much, how long he'd been getting courted by the Green Bay Packers, but it would be nice if you could like give these guys a heads up and say, if you got to say something like the coaching convention, because the coaching convention is where a lot of these guys get interviewed and they get new jobs and stuff. So I mean, I just think that the timing of this is not great for the guys that are on staff at Boston College because a lot of jobs have already been filled. But again, there's still the carousel still swinging along in the coaching realm. Live from Todd's. It's Saturday night. That's hilarious. Thanks for the 10. Live from Ted's. Excuse me, not Todd's. Apologize. I gotta get my eyes checked. Good God. It's Saturday night. I love that. Quick question: are we getting any players from the team up north or not? It's not looking good right now, is it? Well, you have to remember, there's another portal after spring ball where guys are going to jump in. And again, I think that's where Michigan's going to get hammered is that second portal because, dude, you've got they're going to know what the sanctions are. They're going to know what they're up against, and I don't know. Like, I mean, you got to do what's best for you. I mean, Jim Harbaugh literally just did that. Devad, your thoughts? I mean, Michigan's had a couple kids enter the portal, just not Colson Loveland or the guys that I really want, but your thoughts on Michigan in the portal?
No, it's so wide open. And go back, look when was Harbaugh named the coach of the Chargers? It hasn't been that long ago. I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
been like a week.
Yeah, it's been a week. I mean, I think people look at that and they're like, "Oh, if it doesn't happen in like 4 days, that it's not going to happen or whatever it is." No, it's been literally just a few days. So, like this stuff, you got to let this stuff happen. You got to let this stuff develop. And I mean, Alabama is still very much in play in terms of guys, and Saban was way before Harbaugh was on that stuff. So now don't take just because you haven't heard about something for a couple of days that's not going to happen. Things are very much still in play. Conversations are very much still happening. And with Ozzy, same thing with Ozzy. I think now obviously with the the uncertainty of who's going to be the head coach, will Bill O'Brien stay? What he's going to? I think he's just going to let the dust settle and let that kind of come out as well. So I think there's a number of different options on the table, and but don't take just because you haven't heard stuff in a few days that it's not going to happen because it's very possible it could still happen. And in fact, I'm betting that some of that stuff is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, like with Caleb Downs, we did like 8 straight days of podcasts. It was like the Caleb Downs Palooza, and he hadn't hit the portal yet. But I'm like, when Saban retired, I'm like, look, Nick Saban's the greatest safety coach of all time, and you're a safety. Now you're bringing in a terrible defensive staff at Washington, and I'm like, I ain't saying for that. I mean, are you gonna trust your life in the arms of I think it's Kane Womack or something like that? It's the guy who's from South Alabama who's a new DC. He was the DC at Indiana a few years ago, and he was the guy that like when he went to South Alabama, he was like helping Saban, prepare for us in 2020. Like he was like clinicking with him about what they did to us, and obviously, with us running a 4-4 defense versus Devontae Smith, that wasn't. They didn't really need to do that much in that championship game, but I don't know. I think it's going to be fascinating because again, these kids got to make a business decision, man. And Ohio State is loaded for bear. And it's like if I was a kid and I had an opportunity to go to Ohio State right now, and I got to start basically, at a position of need, how could you not do it? It's crazy. Appreciate you guys, but that's a great question. But I think that second portal is going to be the big one. Beach Buck 5, the biggest player bust of all time. Marcus Dupree, Buckeye Claret. Well, I don't think Maurice is a bust. I mean, obviously the NFL didn't go great for him just because of, he had some demons he was fighting. But I mean, God, he's one of the best running backs in school history, and he only played for a year. But he was fighting some demons, and Maurice is a monster. Now he's awesome. Like I love Maurice. I don't think I could call him a bust. A bust is tough because, like, is it a bust like from an NFL draft perspective or like a high school recruiting perspective? I don't know. Nevada, all-time biggest bust. I mean, it's got to be a guy like Ryan Leaf, but I mean, it's got to be a guy who's like goes first or second overall. God, Mitch Trubisky was a pretty big bust because he was in a draft class with Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, and he was the guy that went 2 overall, which is crazy to me. God, that's a good question though. I think sometimes you have to look at what are they walking into, because like I don't like the word bust. I mean, some guys are busts, but I don't like Bruce Arians made a great point when he talked about Tim Couch. Tim Couch, Bruce Arians, who's a football savant and genius, said that Tim Couch wasn't a bust. And I think most of you that are Browns fans would say, oh, of course he's a bust. He stunk. He was the first overall pick and didn't do anything. And like Bruce Arians is like, we had an expansion team. We were the worst. I mean, literally, you have the worst players on every team, and you get to make a team out of that, And so Tim got destroyed. And I went to every Browns game from '99 to '02. And I watched some bad football, man. And he got killed. I mean, and then his shoulder was gone. That was the thing Bruce Arians talked about, is how good he could throw the ball. But once his shoulder got wrecked, he lost his velocity. So I always wonder what would it have been like if Peyton Manning would have gone to the Browns and Tim Couch would have gone to the Colts, because they were 1 year apart, 98, 99. Peyton's a year older. But Peyton walked into Marvin Harrison Sr., Tarek Glenn, who was a first-round pick left tackle. They took care of him. They had Marshall Falk, and then they draft Edgerrin, and then they draft Reggie Wayne. So like, that's way different than Eric Rhett and Kevin Johnson and Dennis Northcutt and whoever, and an awful offensive line that is literally made up of a bunch of guys that, mostly were backups or practice squad guys, and they signed some free agents like Zeus, Orlando Brown Sr., but like, that's just wildly different infrastructure. Because I say to you all the time, Nevada, like, some quarterbacks have no chance. Like Bryce Young has no chance to be successful in Carolina, none, because the line's bad. They hired Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator, but like, you need like really good players around you to be successful in the NFL. But what are your thoughts on that, Nevada? Biggest bust of all time? Probably Ryan Leaf, I guess. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, first of all, busts to me are guys that can't play, not guys that are felled by injury or other things like that. And that's where you got to look at guys like Jamarcus Russell, Ryan Leaf. In basketball, Anthony Bennett. Remember when the Cavs took him first?
Oh, God, yes. That's a bust.
That's a bust. Because, like, to me, like Sam Bowie, who fractures his leg, or Greg Oden. Greg Oden's not a bust. And Greg Oden was going to be a historically great player in the NBA, but couldn't stay healthy. But Anthony Bennett just couldn't play. So that's the big difference, for me. So that would be Jamarcus Russell. I put Tony Mandarich in that thing too, because the Packers took him so high, and he was supposed to be all that, and it was just the steroids coursing through. He was way ahead of the pharmaceutical game in college, couldn't get ahead of it in the NFL, and flamed out completely. So some pretty big busts out there, but luckily Ohio State's managed to avoid a lot of them, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that guys that can't play, guys that like Anthony Bennett, that's a perfect bust because he wasn't befelled by injuries. I have a problem people calling Greg Oden a bust, and again, he's tortured because Kevin Durant was the second pick, and it was a draft where those two guys were so much further. I mean, it was like one of those generational drafts where you have two franchise guys at the very top of the draft, and like Greg Oden's one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. I mean, he's almost bashful because he's so big, and everywhere he goes, like, everyone knows who he is because he looked like he was 45 years old and he was 18. But I remember leading up to that draft, like, they do like an NBA combine, and Greg Oden killed it. Like, I mean, destroyed it. And then Durant, I don't think he could bench 185 like one time. And again, bench press doesn't mean anything when you're 7 feet tall and you can shoot threes from 40 feet out. But Greg Oden was, I mean, there wasn't anybody that was saying you take Durant over Oden, because Oden was 7'2" or whatever, and 280 and freak of nature. And that's back when big guys kind of ruled the back when you had big centers. Like, those are basically gone the way of the dodo in the NBA. But I don't know. Like I don't like calling guys that get hurt or have bad circumstances a bust. And again, I didn't have much. I only had like a 3-year NFL career, but it was, sometimes like it's crazy when I go back and look at what I went through, getting cut, getting claimed. I was on 5 teams in 1 year, and it was crazy, and it kept happening. I'm like, I don't want to go anywhere else. I just want to go to one team, and so that's really tough. Like Josh Johnson's the guy who's played on like 15 teams. He's a quarterback. They called him the greatest journeyman of all time. He was actually in my draft. We had the same agent. Great dude. D Sonny, thank you for the 5. Can you tell us about a time during a game where you were involved in that a coach made a genius adjustment on the fly? That is a great question. A lot of it is just figuring out what they're giving you, because that's the most important part to coaching on game day, is figuring out what is the other team going to do against you. And some teams like Iowa's played the same defense for like 30 years, so there's nothing confusing about what they do. But again, like in 2012 with Urban, we had no idea how teams were going to defend this offense, because we were in that power spread. And you would usually watch like Northwestern or teams. When you study film during the week, you watch teams that have a similar offense to you. But with what we did, there wasn't anybody that did kind of exactly what we did. So we never knew how we were going to be defended. So, I would be up there trying to crack the code on the defense as fast as possible, so that I could say, okay, we're getting cover 3, we're getting a field blitz, we're getting whatever. And this is what we expected. This is what we didn't expect. So, I mean, really, like, I guess every time we were rolling with Tom Herman, and I were up in the booth, and Tim Hinton, like, we would just try to pick up stuff as fast as possible, in terms of, who's where, what coverages are we getting versus different formations and different down and distances. So it's like a nonstop on the fly thing. But I will say a story, and I've told the story before, but I love the story. In 2012, we're playing Purdue, and Purdue was not good, but they had a guy named Kewan Short who was awesome. And Kewan Short went in the 2nd round. He made like $70 million in the NFL. He's the guy that knocked Braxton out of the game. And I don't think it was a dirty hit, but he definitely killed him. And Braxton had to take the ambulance to the hospital. And it was so funny the next day in meetings, like they did every test in the world on Braxton. They couldn't find anything wrong with him. But he took the ambulance ride, like on Madden on Sega Genesis. Like we get into that game, and we get into overtime. And you guys all remember it. Like we were going to get booed out of the stadium if we lose to that bad Purdue team. Like that 12-0 Urban Meyer book would have never been written. But I remember, an adjustment we made is that, this guy was killing us. I mean, he was killing Norwell, he was killing Lindsley, killing Marcus Hall, and we couldn't block the guy. And I'm like, we cannot run at this guy. Stop running at him. So that was kind of a genius. You don't have to be like a total neurosurgeon to figure out that when they have one really good player, don't run the ball at him. And we get to overtime, and we ran a play called Y Hide, which a Y is in general a tight end. And it was to Hireman. And we literally Urban wanted to run it Kewan Short. Like he wanted to run the ball. I handed it to Carlos Hyde for the 2-point play. And you talk about a genius adjustment on the fly. Like Tom Herman literally vetoed Urban Meyer, which was great. And because I literally told him, I was like, dude, we're going to get booed out of the stadium because this guy's killing us. And we can't block him. So don't do anything except for what Urban wants to do. Because Urban was like screaming. He's like, I'm looking at the offensive lineman's eyes, and they're screaming for Book, which is our tight zone play. I'm like, dude, we are going to get fired. Well, you guys are going to get fired. I'm out of here anyways. I'm a GA. But it just was hilarious that Tom actually overruled him. He said, Coach, we worked on the Y Hide play all week. It's our 2-point play. Because every week you carry 1 2-point play. So if we go for 2, this is a play we're running. And he's like, we practiced it all week as our 2-point play. I want to call it. Okay. So I'm just glad Jeff Hireman caught the ball and we won. Because otherwise, I'm telling you, the 12-0 season would have been kaput. But that was a genius on the fly thing. Because sometimes it's just directing personnel, and you got to know what matchups are good and what matchups are terrible. And it drives me crazy when we don't help our tackles sometimes when they're clearly outmanned by some guys, because there's a lot of creative stuff you can do in pass protection to help those guys out a little bit. So, but that's my pet peeve. All right, Beach Buck, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you. Okay. Let me see. Where you're not popping. There we go. All right. Thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my man. Let me be more precise. Unfulfilled greatness in college football. So basically, it's like the biggest recruiting bust. Now, this one's a lot easier to do because there's so many of these. Nevada, I'll let you start because I talked a little bit, and I know that we've got our hard stop coming at 8.
Give me the criteria again.
The criteria is unfulfilled greatness in college football. So who's a guy that was like a can't, again, like
you guys are tired. You guys are tired of hearing me talk about Torrance Gibson, but man, I just can't get over that guy.
That's a great one.
That's a great one. Just, I mean, very possibly the greatest athlete to play football at Ohio. I mean, the numbers he did, the standing broad jump. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, I want to say he did like 12 feet on the standing broad.
Yeah,
it was some otherworldly number, and the fact that we didn't get to see him, and the fact that the reason that we didn't get to see him was kind of bogus. And
it's terrible.
It was terrible. So that one was, that one. You asked me for my number one on my list. That Torrance Gibson would definitely be top of my list for sure.
That's a great one. I mean, that kid got robbed. And, I mean, I still talk to Brett Getz about him, and he's like, he was special, like really special. Especially like getting him as a supersized wide receiver. It would have been terrifying. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, Luis Irizarry is a great one because that kid was a monster. Bobby Carpenter couldn't cover him. I'll never forget that. Bobby, they were like getting in fights every day because Luis just run away from Bobby. But Luis was, he had some demons, and he was gone. But I mean, I thought Luis was going to be like a 3-and-out dude. I mean, he was real good. Even though he did drop Justin Zwick's touchdown pass. I'll never forget that. He was wide open. Oh my God. They were playing Northwestern in 2003. That was hilarious. I was like, oh my God, you're never going to live that down. So that was his one play in the shoe. So I'd say probably Lewis for me because he was in my class. He was my buddy. But yeah, I was shocked. I mean, he was gone by spring ball. Darius Hiley's a good one too. I mean, Darius was a guy that he was like the first big guy out of Glenville. Yeah, I wish we could have gotten something out of soup. Nick Fiztuli, I hope I said that right. If I didn't, I apologize. Thanks for being a Soup Ultra member. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for the 20. If we get a kid from another school, how does that work with the semester already starting? Do they have to wait to the next mark in the period? I don't know, because that is a great question. Like, if this Aussie kid wants to show up and transfer like mid-year, I think there has to be a way to get a kid caught up with online classes and whatever. Like, I mean, that's actually a great question. That's a fantastic question, but it's got to be something with online classes because, like, Ohio State, where there's a will, there's a way. And with these kids, if we get some star tackle and he wants to come here like in February, I'm sure that they can do some sort of a waiver to get him in and get him caught up or whatever. Because again, like, that's something that every school's got to deal with, and I think it's just easier now because of online classes. I think it makes it much more simple. Your thoughts on that, Nevada? That was a tough one, but I would say they probably could do a waiver and get kids in.
Yeah, we should find out exactly what the process is for doing that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think with the online classes and the tutoring and the additional kind of work that they can do, I've never heard it be an issue at all when they've talked about this stuff. It's never like, hey, you're gonna have to wait, or, oh wow, the timing's really inconvenient. That just isn't ever a thing. So it leads me to believe that it just isn't a thing.
Yeah, and that'd be something that we're like, Ryan Day's gonna be like, come on, guys, like, what are we doing? Like if say it was like Caleb Downs, say like Nick Saban left and he left in February instead of January. Like, if you got a guy that wants to come, then they're gonna figure out a way to get it done. Because again, there's all kinds of things that go on at a university, or people they have hardships because maybe a parent dies, maybe they get sick, something like whatever. So I'm sure there's a million different ways to do that. But again, like with online classes being so prevalent now, I think that's a huge deal. Sean Rawlings, thank you for the 20. Appreciate you, brother. I hope you guys are having a fun Saturday. This has been a blast, as always. We love doing this. We are going to lock this thing down. Nevada, your thoughts on everything as we crank this episode out. We appreciate you guys. But yeah, Bill O'Brien expansion. Let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah, no, just got a lot of calls out to try to get the most current information on players transferring, on Bill O'Brien. We'll continue to monitor. I'm going to be texting guys all night. Um, Actually, had some guys calling me about Super Bowl tickets while we're on the phone. That actually have Super Bowl tickets. It's funny how the ticket was so desirable, and now tickets are becoming available, and it's kind of like last minute who can go,
Yeah,
because getting there is such a hassle. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
yeah.
it's not like that's not an easy thing to do. So I'm having to really think about it. But yeah, I'm having agents actually offer me Super Bowl tickets, like to give to me. So I'll be calling them, checking stuff out, and we'll have an update tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. The thing is it's going to be absolutely nuts. I mean, you're a Vegas guy, and it is going to be absolutely crazy out there, and it's going to be expensive. My God. But
Yeah.
I think the market's going to start to crash just because I think people, not again, are they still going to be like $10,000 tickets? Probably, but again, just getting out there is tough. Well, that's good. All right, well, we'll wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys as always. Let me get Sean off the screen. I appreciate you guys kicking it with us. Again, I apologize that we missed yesterday. It is amazing how I get blown up if I miss a day. But I love you guys. It's great. I think it's absolutely hilarious. So I have to apologize to Mark Garfield. This was great. I got a note from your daughter Lexi, and she said you were complaining all morning that we didn't podcast last night. So that was hilarious. So I appreciate you guys so much. Again, we love doing this. Sometimes we've got youth sports or something gets in the way. But again, we love doing this, and this is a great show because you guys make it a great show. So we're very thankful and gracious. You guys are awesome. So I hope you guys have a great Saturday night. But if you guys enjoy this content, please click the like button. Those are huge for us. Also, click the little the alert bell if you like to do these because we usually go around 7. Sometimes we move it around, but usually we're going to try to be pretty consistent at 7 every night. So yeah, and subscribe to the channel. Send it to your friends, family, anybody that loves Ohio State football or college football. Let them know about it. Spread the word. We appreciate you guys so much. Hope you guys have a great night. Again, thank you for kicking it with us. Again, it's always a blast. And I'm about to jump on BuckeyesCoop.com. So if you want to keep the party going, join BuckeyesCoop.com. Appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. Talk to you tomorrow. Go Bucks.